Hello and welcome to another great week here at Eastside. My name is Norm, and if this is your first time here, know that Eastside is one church in many locations.
And no matter who you are, we are grateful that you've chosen to be here today.
If you haven't done it yet, we invite you to jump into Next Steps. It's a 4-week journey that will help you really move forward in your faith, and it can help you get the most out of your time here at Eastside.
This week happens to be step 1, so it's a great time to start on our physical campus. It happens on the weekend, or you can join us online Wednesday night. Just go to eastside.com/nextsteps for more details.
Now, today we get to hear from Gene as we finish our message series called He Gets Us. But first, we get to experience some amazing worship.
So let's dive in. Eastside starts right now.
Welcome to Eastside, where we gather, all of us, each in different stage of our spiritual journey, young and old, all races and colors. We don't exist for ourselves, but for people. People that haven't been invited, people that haven't been cared for, who have walked away from God. People have a past that pushes others away. It's about the hurting and those who have lost hope. We gather as one church, not as individuals, not as separate campuses, but as a family pushing towards the same thing, knowing that Jesus was not for the select few, but for all of us. We believe Jesus is the hope in a world of darkness, and it's through his church that the world will find light. We believe who we choose to be today will determine the world of tomorrow. So we have a vision, to begin each day with purpose, to open our hearts and minds to learn something new, to let go of our comfortable living to reach the searching, the broken, the hurting, to focus on what really matters, to band together and fight against the darkness. A vision to be the church Jesus called us to be. This isn't just a church. Eastside is a movement of people who gather together with Jesus declaring, this is for everyone.
Welcome to church. Welcome to Eastside. You just stand with us wherever you are. Come on, let's declare together. That's it. We worship the God who was. We worship the God who is. We worship the God who evermore will be. He opened the prison doors. He parted the raging sea. My God, He holds the victory. Come on, every voice. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. We shout out to praise. There's joy in we are, Jesus. We sing the songs to you and you alone. All my words fall short. I got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing this song as I often do, but every song must end, and you never do. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again, 'cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king except for our hearts singing just one move, with my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again, 'cause all that I have is a hallelujah, don't you get shy of me, lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Let's praise Him. Oh, come on, my soul. Oh, don't you get shy of me, lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my soul. Oh, don't you get shy of me, lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again, 'cause all that I have is a hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king, 'cause all that I have is a
God, we look to you this morning with hearts of gratitude. God, hearts full of love because you loved us first. God, we sing these words to you today with our eyes open and our ears open to hear what you have to say. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. Come on, we sing this out together. Sing all my life. All my life you have been faithful. All praise. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. Yes, with every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Come on, this is good news. Sing your goodness. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me, yes. And your goodness is running after, it's running after me, oh. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, we sing, oh, we praise. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, come on, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. Come on, He is faithful to us.
Amen. I don't know about you, but I needed that. I needed that. You can go ahead and take a seat inside. My name is Tiago, one of the worship leaders around here. So glad you're joining us today. And I love this song, and I love this particular part of this song that says, "Your goodness is running after me. And when I sing this phrase, an image comes to my mind, a father running towards a son. You know, this past week I had, you know, a little incident with my son. I feel like he's 4 now. Chris is 4, and he needs new shoes like every other week, I feel like. It's amazing. They grow so fast. And I got some new ones for him at the outlet. I got some Jordans. He was so excited about it. He saw them. Was like, they're red. This is so cool. Can I try them on? And we actually here at church. And if you've ever been to the student center, there's this long hallway. And he's like, can I try them on, Daddy? I was like, of course you can. They're so fast. They're going to be so fast. I know. And he ran as fast as he could. And he was looking down at his new shoes, and he was just running. And I was like, this hallway is ending soon. And he did not notice that. I was like in slow motion, like, look up. It was too late. He hit the double doors, lifted a little bit, and fell to the ground. I've never ran that fast in my life towards my son to make sure he was okay. And, you know, thank God he was okay. Just a little bump here, and after ice cream in 30 minutes, he was fine. He was back. But, you know, when I think about Jesus and him running towards us, the image that comes to my mind is Jesus running towards the cross. You know, he was fully human, but also fully God. And he felt everything, the pain, the shame. And he was also God. He could snap his fingers and change everything. But he chose not to do that because he knew there was only one way that we could be reconciled with the Father. And he did this because he loves us so much that he gave his life for us. And we have an opportunity here at Eastside to remember the sacrifice by taking communion together. And if you walked in today, you probably received the elements, the cup, and if you peel the top, there's the bread on top. If you didn't receive them, just raise your hand. We have super fast change makers. They're gonna bring one right at you. If you're watching from home as well, feel free to grab whatever you have in your pantry and partake with us. And if you're visiting us today and if you don't feel comfortable taking communion, it's more than fine to take a pass. We're gonna have some scriptures in the wall, and you can meditate on those, maybe say a prayer. Just know that whenever you're ready to enter into a relationship with Christ, this is also available to you. So let's remember his sacrifice together. Father, we're just so thankful for these moments. We love you, and we love you because you loved us first, Father. We're thankful that we can gather in this place and worship you. And we're thankful that we can call this place home. We pray this in your name. And everybody says, amen. Just again, we're so glad you're here. I would love to share a story with you about a family whose life has been changed from serving here at Eastside. Take a look at this.
Hi, Eastside. We are the Bryan family. This is my husband, Kyle, and daughters, Olivia and Penelope. We have been bringing our family to Mexico for over 13 years, literally from the time that they could just barely walk. And it's had an incredibly profound effect on our family and our church family as well.
As a dad, I wanted to be able to create service opportunities with my family, and we found those opportunities in Mexico. We've been able to go down for many years now and serve alongside fellow Eastsiders and along with the people at the orphanage.
One of my best experiences in Mexico is when I decided to be baptized there. Through my walk with God, I was with my family and my fellow Eastsiders and all my friends. I happened to be baptized in a little kiddie pool, but it meant all the more to me, and I felt like God really spoke to me. I had Artie and Jeff by my side and my dad, and it was one of the best moments I've ever experienced with God and in Mexico.
Our family's had so many experiences in Mexico with our walk through Christ and just with each other as a family. So we really encourage you, bring your friends, bring your family, and join our family in Mexico.
I love that, don't you? You can clap for that. You can clap for that. Hey, my name is Scott. I get to work with our Next Gen teams around here. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. But when you walk into church, I don't know how you decide where you're going to sit, but I think that sometimes we pay special attention to the people in the center, don't you think? So I'm going to change that up a little bit, all right? Right side sitters, how you doing? We doing good over here? All right. So a little strange fact, if you want to know it. When people walk into a movie theater, after the center seats fill, the right side fills before the left side. Do you know that? I don't know why you need to know that, but I just told you. And I also want to tell you that Mexico trips are coming this July, and you would have an opportunity, everyone on the right side and everyone in the whole room, to go on one of these trips. There's 3 different trips. They're 4 days. They're only $65. You can find out about them on the website or at our Compassion Cafe out in the hallway. But can I just tell you this? All the times that I've gone on a trip like this, I've gone thinking I'm going to do some help for some people. I'm going to make a difference where I go. And every single time, it turns out that God has something for me in the midst of it, probably even more than any help that I did when I was there. So I just want to put that out there. Consider it. And right side sitters, everyone in the room, that's open to you. And if you're a generous giver around Eastside, you're part of making this happen already. This is one of the things that's happened through the generosity of Eastsiders. And you can give online, or you can give on the Eastside app, or you can give at the giving boxes in the back of the room. Some of you thought that I was going to neglect the left side sitters, didn't you? I'm not. Left side, how we doing? We good? So this is true too, at least according to a Smithsonian study. When you can pick your seat on an airplane flight, the left side fills faster than the right side. It's true, apparently. Must be safer. No, probably not. Left side sitters, I want to tell you this though. I think there's probably someone on the left side. You snuck in and you went to the back of the room maybe. You're kind of on the side. It's because you're here for the first time. And I want you to see me looking at you and saying, I'm so glad that you came here and you snuck over to the left side or in the back or on the other side. But if you did come here for the first time today, I want to invite you to come to Guest Central out in the hallway, because we'd love to give you a little gift for showing up here, an Eastside travel mug, and also a voucher for a meal at the grill, you and your whole family. We're super glad that you'd come and hang out with us on a weekend, all you left side new first-timer sitters, and I just want to welcome you for that. And center newcomers and right side newcomers. So center, are we still here? Center sitters, we doing good? All right, see? Enthusiasm in the middle. All right, I like that. Hey, I want to tell center sitters, online watchers, and everybody in the room that this is week 1 of Next Steps. And if you don't know what Next Steps is, it's an experience that we do around Eastside, 4 weeks long, really short but super interactive, and it's an opportunity not just to know more about Eastside, but also to find out more about what God might be doing in you and maybe in your future. And I just want to put on an invitation to you. Today would be a fantastic day to start. Maybe you didn't intend to, but you're able to right after the service. I think there's times up there online as well. It's a really great experience. Just want to encourage anybody in the room who's not done Next Steps. It's a fantastic thing to do. So, hey, last thing I want to say is this is the final week of our series, He Gets Us. Jake Barker, our Anaheim campus pastor, is going to come and has got a great message to share with all of you. And I'm just really glad that you came to Eastside today. Happy Sunday.
Hey everyone, welcome to Eastside. I'm so glad that you're here today. Hey, my name is Jake, and I have the honor and privilege of being the Anaheim campus pastor. And I think that today we're gonna have a lot of fun. I don't know what your past church experience has been. Often fun is not the word that's used to describe it, but today we're gonna have a lot of fun together. And to kick all of that off, I want you to help me welcome all of our Eastside locations. Can you give some love to Anaheim and Park Rapids, Bellflower, Redlands, Online, Las Vegas, Irvine. Hey, if you're new around here, then we are one church that meets in 7 different locations. And even though we cross time zones and state lines and county lines, we still rally around one single mission, and we love being together. So thanks for being part of it this weekend. Now, if you were here last weekend, you heard me invite you to pray for our lead pastor, Gene, and his entire family, because they are currently mourning the loss of his granddaughter, Maisie Joy. She was born prematurely and was with the family for one day until she went to be with Jesus forever. And if you've ever been through a heartbreak like that, then you know that it does not go away overnight. In fact, this weekend, they had a memorial service to celebrate the brief but impactful life of Maisie Joy. And many of you have been praying and encouraging and supporting the family. And on behalf of them, I want to say thank you. Some of you have also wondered how you can help. Is there anything you can do? And I want to say a couple things. First of all, you already have. When you give here at Eastside, it positions us as a church to quickly respond to crises like these. And so if you give here, you've already helped support the family and love on them. But if you want to know about a more direct way that you can participate, all you need to do is look at the sermon notes in the Eastside app. And at the top of those notes are 2 different links that you can follow and find out how you can love and support the family if you feel led to do so. But whatever you do this week, please keep praying, please keep encouraging. I know it is lifting up the family in this really difficult season. Now today we're gonna wrap up a message series we've been in for the last 5 weeks called He Gets Us. And what we've been doing is looking at different interactions between Jesus and very different kinds of people in different kinds of circumstances, all with different kinds of problems. But even though all the situations were different, we have found some common threads between how Jesus interacts with people back then and how he interacts with us today. The first part that we've learned is that Jesus met people where they were. Jesus didn't live in an ivory tower and made people come find him. Instead, he would go right to meet the people in their circumstances, in their season of life. And what we've seen so far is that these were some pretty messy seasons. There was a grieving sister mourning the loss of her brother. There was a curious intellectual that was asking a lot of questions that would radically disrupt his life. There was a disabled man by a pool that was on his last hope. And there was an embarrassed couple in the middle of some pretty shameful circumstances at their wedding reception. And Jesus went right into it. He didn't ask them to clean up before he would talk to them. He entered into their mess. And I want you to know that he will do the same for you today. But this is an incomplete statement because Jesus met people where they were, but didn't leave them there. Any true, authentic encounter with Jesus always produces change. He didn't meet them in their mess and leave them in their mess. He produced change in their life, primarily the action of belief. So when he met Martha at Lazarus' tomb in the middle of her grief, when he raised her brother from the dead, it emboldened her belief. And when he interacted with Nicodemus in the middle of the night as he was asking all of his questions, the way Jesus encouraged him is that it made Nicodemus believe. And when he healed that man that could not walk, it led to belief. And even when Jesus turned water into wine, it led to the belief of the disciples. And so the whole point of this series and any true interaction between you and Jesus will lead to belief. That's why we've been reading this verse from the John chapter 20 throughout the series. It says, Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are now not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. What I genuinely believe and what we've been praying for all week long is that for some of you today will be the very first day that you stand and declare that you believe. And so we are going to wrap up this series by looking at one more interaction between Jesus and someone that you may have heard of already. In fact, the reason that you've heard of this guy is because he has a pretty famous nickname. Now, I don't know if you got a nickname when you were growing up. If you did, I hope it was a flattering one and not an insulting one. But nicknames are weird. Some point in our life, usually as a young person, an adult maybe gives us a nickname and then it just sticks and it follows us and it even becomes part of our identity and our personality. In fact, this week I spent a little time looking up the stories behind some famous nicknames. This guy here, this is Gordon Sumner, all right? But everyone over the age of 40 knows him as who? As Sting. But do you know how Sting got his nickname? Early in his playing career, he was in a jazz band, and he had a habit of wearing the same sweater that had yellow and black stripes down it. So one of his bandmates named him after a bumblebee and called him Sting, and it stuck. All right? See, this is why you come to church, so you can learn all this really interesting stuff. Here's a guy that you probably know. His name is George Herman Ruth, but you know him as who? Babe Ruth. Or if you were a fan of the movie Sandlot, then you know all of his nicknames. You know him as the Sultan of Swing, the Colossus of Clout, the King of Crash, Babe Ruth, the Great Bambino. You know them all. Now, the way he got his name is that it's not very cool. He just started playing baseball professionally when he was 19, and they called him Babe. All right? I wish there was a better story. That's how I got it. Or you might know this guy. This is Calvin Brodus. But you know him as who? Snoop Dogg. There's always one guy at every service that's really excited to yell Snoop Dogg, all right? The one and only D-O-double-G. Now, this guy was a rapper on Death Row Records. He is the unlikely best friend of Martha Stewart, and he is in every other commercial during the playoffs, but you may not know how he got his name. Well, early in his life as a kid, this guy was a really big fan of the cartoon Peanuts, and so his mom started calling him Snoop. Now, that doesn't quite match his persona of someone from the hard streets of Compton, but I read it on the internet, so you know it's true, okay? That's the case. These nicknames, they stick with us, so they become part of our personality. And today we're gonna watch Jesus interact with one of his disciples that had an incredibly famous nickname with some sticking power. In fact, I believe if I start it, you might be able to finish it. This guy's name was Doubting who? Thomas. Doubting Thomas. It's kind of a rough nickname. I mean, for the last 2,000 years, he has been the most famous doubter of Jesus Christ of all time. And oftentimes when we talk about Thomas, we describe him as this obstinate, hard-headed, just wanting to refuse to believe kind of guy. But if it's cool with you today, I'd like to be nice to Thomas. Is that okay? I'd like to be nice to Thomas because I think we have a lot in common with him. And I'd like to be nice to Thomas because I think there's more to his story than meets the eye. And most importantly, I'd like to be nice to Thomas because Jesus was. And so if you have a Bible or a Bible app, we're gonna be hanging out in John chapter 20, and you can follow along there. And before we dive in, I'd like to set the scene for what we are about to read. Thus far in the Gospel of John, Jesus has finished and completed his ministry. And you would think that at the end of Jesus' ministry, there might be a ticker tape parade of victory, but instead it ended with an arrest in a garden. Jesus' enemies had trumped up these charges, and now Jesus was under arrest, and he faced a sham trial where he was beaten, and mocked and spat upon. And because the trial was rigged from the very beginning, his enemies won, and he was convicted of a crime he did not commit. And he was sentenced to the death penalty on a cross. And the Romans, who were experts at crucifixion, they nailed his hands and his feet to a cross. And as his life was expiring, just to make sure, they took a spear and shoved it into his side for good measure. And then they lowered the cross, and followers of Jesus took him off, and they wrapped him. They put him in a tomb and rolled a stone in front of it so no one could come or go. And friends, that is what today we call Good Friday. And then on Saturday, nothing happened. It was quiet. No miracles, no reappearances. Just a group of disciples that were disoriented from what they had just experienced. But on Sunday morning, a follower of Jesus named Mary Magdalene, she showed up to the tomb to take care of Jesus' body. But when she got there, she didn't find Jesus. She found absolutely no one in that tomb. And in her enthusiasm, she ran back to the disciples to tell them what she saw. And in typical guy fashion, they didn't take her at her word. They run to the tomb to see, and guess what they found? Exactly what Mary said they would find, absolutely no one. And so what we can glean from this series of events is that no one expected the resurrection. Mary Magdalene didn't see it coming. The disciples didn't see it coming. And the reason they didn't see it coming, the reason they didn't anticipate the resurrection is for one pretty good reason. And to state the obvious, dead people usually stay dead, okay? Like almost always. 99.999% of the time, dead people stay dead. If they had anticipated the resurrection, they would have been waiting at the tomb like New Year's Eve at Times Square, ready to count it down. But instead, they were huddled in a room, scared for their own lives. And now on Sunday morning, they had this mixed bag of emotions. I mean, they were happy that Jesus wasn't there anymore, but also confused because of the whole dead people staying dead thing. They were hopeful that the story wasn't over, but they were also hesitant to get their hopes up again. And that's where we find them in John chapter 20, verse 19. Look what happens. It says, that Sunday evening, that's the Sunday evening of the resurrection, the disciples were meeting behind locked doors because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders. Suddenly, Jesus was standing there among them. Peace be with you, he said. As he spoke, he showed them the wounds in his hands and his side, and they were filled with joy when they saw the Lord. I would say so. I think that might be an understatement there by our author, John. They were ecstatic to see Jesus, but just imagine the emotional roller coaster that they had experienced over the last 2 days. There was this man, this rabbi, that they had followed for the last few years that always exceeded their expectations. The way he led and the way he taught, the way he would see people that were right in front of him that no one else would give the time of day, it made them believe that he was the Son of God. And at the exact moment that they thought they were going to take over and Jesus would finally be in charge, he allowed himself to be arrested and convicted, crucified and buried. On Friday, it seemed like all hope was lost. But now, Jesus is standing in the room with them with a very clear 4-word message: peace be with you. Jesus is saying, I get it. I get you. I know what you've been going through. I know the hopelessness and the restlessness. I know the confusion. I know the desperation. I get where you are coming from, and I am here to give you the thing that you need most: peace. This is a night that those disciples will never, ever forget. That is, all of them except one. Look at verse 24. It says, one of the 12 disciples, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, was not with the others when Jesus came. What a bummer. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't know what Thomas was doing, but everybody else was huddled together. Maybe Thomas had slipped out to get everyone some chips and salsa while they waited, but whatever he was doing, he missed the reappearance of the resurrected Christ. This is way worse than missing the game-winning touchdown because you went to the concession stand at the wrong time, okay? He missed seeing Jesus, the poor guy. And so look at what his friends do when they finally see Thomas again. They told him, "We have seen the Lord." They're so excited to tell their buddy. And now Thomas utters his infamous ultimatum. He says, "Guys, I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands. Put my fingers in them and place my hand into the wound in his side." All of his friends, they run up to him and he's like, "Thomas, you're never going to believe this. Jesus is alive. He was in the room. He gave us peace. We can believe again. And we can trust again. We can have hope again." And Thomas looks back at him and he says, "Guys, I hope you're right, but I'm not going to believe that unless I can see it and touch it and feel it." So why did Thomas have such a hard time believing what his friends were telling him? Well, it's possible that this was just part of Thomas's personality. Maybe he was one of those, like, I got to see it to believe it, guys. I want to touch it. I want to feel it. I need all the evidence, and I need all the proof. Maybe he was a science major at Galilee Community College, and he just said, unless this passes the scientific method, I cannot believe. I need more proof. And it's possible that you walked in today and you would say, that's exactly where you are right now. That actually, you kind of wish you could believe what everyone else believes, but you just don't know that there's enough evidence, that there's enough proof. And if that's you, I want to say I'm so glad that you're here. And I want you to ask all of your questions, and I want you to air out all of your doubts, because you will not be discouraged or dismissed from going on that journey. I think one of the worst things that Christians do to the people in their lives that don't share their faith is they act like this all ought to be really easy to believe. Like, why can't you just see what I see? Why can't you just have faith like I have faith? Maybe if you prayed a little harder, maybe if you really wanted to believe, then you would believe. Maybe someone has said that to you, and much like Thomas, you're like, I just need more proof. And if you have a hard time believing all of this, can I just say, I hear you. Like, I understand where you're coming from. Because this God that you can't see, hear, or touch, we're asking you to believe that he spoke the world into being. And in the early part of history, he cared for the nation of Israel through a lot of miracles. Like when they needed to cross the Red Sea, he parted the waters and they walked on dry land. And when they needed something to eat, all of a sudden there was just bread out of nowhere. And he saved a prophet from the belly of a fish. And he saved a prophet from a lion's den without being eaten alive. He saved a young boy from the battlefield when he was facing a giant because he was good with a slingshot. And then this God that you can't see, hear, or touch sent his son by way of a virgin birth, which had never happened before for pretty obvious reasons. And then that son spent his life performing these miracles where he would heal people and he walked on water and he fed 5,000 people with nothing more than a Happy Meal. And then he was nailed to a cross for the sins of this world. And now this God that you can't see, hear, or touch is saying, if you believe all of that, then there is eternity for you in heaven and you will be made right with him. And if right now you're raising your hand and you're saying, yeah, that's a lot for me, can I say, I get it. I hear where you're coming from, I really do. But as kindly as I can possibly state it, I just want you to know that even if you don't believe in Jesus, you still believe in something. Sometimes when we're having these conversations, we put like the Christians on one side and everyone else on the other. And we say, well, the Christians are the ones with faith. And then everyone else has facts. So if you're a faith person, you go on this side. If you're a fact person, you go on this side. And that's how we end the argument. But what I need to tell you is that no one, no matter what your worldview is about all that we experience, can empirically, beyond a shadow of a doubt, prove everything. We all have a little bit of faith. We all believe in something. So for instance, if God didn't create this world, if there wasn't a designer, if there wasn't an originator, then at some point we're gonna need an explanation as to how all this happened, the origins of the world. If this really is the accidental collision of some atoms, then we're gonna have to figure out how there was one moment where there weren't those atoms, and then another moment the atoms were there. And if really this is all the accidental collision of atoms, without really any design or purpose or meaning, that we're all just surviving for this one life that we have, if that's true, then we're gonna need to figure out why we as humans spend so much time enjoying the beauty of the world. Enjoying beauty is not a survival instinct. And from my belief, I believe there was a creative artist named God that put that inside of us. And so he's the reason that we sit and enjoy sunsets. And he's the reason that we pause in front of paintings at art museums. And he's the reason that we stand on the shore and bask in the vastness of the ocean. That beauty is because God made us want that. And if all of this is the accidental collision of some atoms that didn't used to exist but now exist, then you're gonna have to explain to me why I love the people in my life so much, sacrificially, unconditionally. Because there were 4 different times a nurse placed a baby in my hands and told me that they were mine. And the second that I looked in their eyes, I knew instantaneously that I would do anything for them. That's sacrificial, selfless love. It comes from a place. And so even if you don't believe in Jesus, you just need explanations for all of this, and it is going to require some faith. You actually are a person of faith. You believe in something. And so maybe you're here today and you're like, I actually get Thomas because I need some more proof. I need some more evidence. Keep going on that journey. It is okay. Take your time. But I'd like to present our friend Thomas as maybe somebody a little bit different, maybe a little misunderstood. It's no doubt that Thomas had his doubts. He was doubting Thomas. But what if he was also heartbroken Thomas? Or what if he was traumatized Thomas? What if he was actually grieving Thomas? I mean, think about the last 48 hours of his life. The man that he believed in, the man that he had put all of his eggs in the Jesus basket, the man he was fully convinced was the Son of God, was arrested, convicted, crucified, and buried. And it seemed like all hope was lost. And so when all of his buddies run up to him and start saying, Jesus is alive, we've seen him, we heard him, we touched him, I don't blame Thomas for saying, guys, I don't know that I can get my hopes up again. Like, I want to believe what you believe. I'm glad you had that experience, but until I have it, I don't know that I can go through the emotional roller coaster again. And friends, I wonder if the reason that you are resisting faith in Jesus right now isn't mostly or even primarily an intellectual barrier. I wonder if you're afraid to hope again. Life is hard. And there's disappointment around every corner, but we never see it coming. I don't know what your story is. I don't know what the hurt is. But I do know that when you lose someone that you love way earlier than you thought you would, it can make you scared to hope again. And I know when the person that says that they would love you forever now tells you that the love has run out, it's difficult and scary to hope again. And I know in the church that you loved and invested in and poured into, they betray your trust. I know it's scary to hope again because when we put ourselves in the place of hope, it makes us vulnerable. Because when we hope, we can be disappointed and we can be let down and we can be hurt. And so it's just easier to keep everyone at a distance, everyone in our lives and even God. We throw up these impenetrable walls because if I put my hope in something again, then I would be very scared. And if that's you today, I just want you to know that you are in the same shoes as Thomas. And I want you to watch what Jesus does for Thomas next. It says 8 days later, the disciples were together again, and this time Thomas was with them. 8 days. 8 days Thomas sat with his doubt. In 8 days, he experienced that FOMO, that fear of missing out. And for 8 days, he had to hang around with all of his buddies that were in the room when Jesus appeared, and he wasn't. And Jesus allowed for him to have that season of wrestling because he knew what he needed most. It says 8 days later, the disciples were together again, and this time Thomas was with them. And the doors were locked, but suddenly, as before, Jesus was standing among them. "Peace be with you," he said. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. Look at my hands. Put your hand into the wound in my side. Don't be faithless any longer. Believe." "My Lord and my God," Thomas exclaimed. So 8 days later, the disciples are regathered, and this time, Thomas is in the right place at the right time. And Jesus comes with the same forward message. He says, "Peace be with you," because Jesus had developed this habit of just showing up in rooms without walking through the door, and it was freaking everyone out. So he said, "Peace be with you. It's me again. I got this." And then he walks over to Thomas, very lovingly, very kindly, and he says, "Touch what you need to touch. Feel what you need to feel. Know what you need to know." What's amazing is that when Thomas made his demands, when he laid out his conditions, Jesus wasn't in the room. He was talking to his disciples, but God knew exactly what Thomas needed. And friends, I'm here to tell you, God knows exactly what you need. Maybe you've heard this before, maybe you've read this on your own. Have you ever wondered why Jesus kept the wounds? This was Jesus' resurrected body. He could have come back looking like anything, a fully healed man, but he kept the wounds. In fact, there are some of us that believe in the resurrection and are very eagerly looking forward to our resurrected bodies because we're hoping that there is a distinct improvement from what we're working with right now. Like when I put in my order for the resurrected body, I'd like Brad Pitt's hair, all right? I'd like Captain America's physique and Denzel's voice, all right? I think that would be a winning combination. I don't know about your order, that's mine. And so when Jesus showed up, he could have looked like anything. And he shows up and he still has the wounds. Why? He knew Thomas would need them. He knew that there was going to be a disciple that missed out and he needed to experience it. He needed to touch it. He needed to feel it. He needed to know. In this moment, Jesus is looking at Thomas and very lovingly says, the very thing that you thought had ruined your life has now saved it because it is drawing you to me. Now, did you notice that when Jesus talked to Thomas, there was no guilt trip? He didn't give him a hard time. There was no passive-aggressive remarks. He didn't roll his eyes at Thomas saying, "Come on, dude, the other 11 got it. Why can't you? We were together for 3 years. You were supposed to believe." None of it. He looked at Thomas and said, "I am going to give you what you need so that you will believe." So that you'll believe. Friends, I'm here to tell you that the really good news about God's kindness toward us is that he will give us what we need so that we will believe. You may not know this, but you and I, we're in this story. Look at how Jesus wraps it up. It said, then Jesus told him, "You believe me," talking to Thomas, "because you have seen me? Blessed are those who believe without seeing me." That's you and me. We're in this. Jesus is saying we are blessed when we believe, even without Thomas's experience. But what we know is that Jesus kept the wounds because he knew that's what Thomas would need to believe, and he will give you what you need to believe. Today, you're going to have the opportunity to stand up and publicly declare that you believe. And before we get to that opportunity, I want you to hear from Aaron about his journey to faith and what it meant for him to believe in Jesus. Check this out.
I was resistant to accept Jesus because of pride. I thought I had it. You know, go through life and you figure stuff out kind of on your own like I did. And I needed a place to live, and my friend suggested a house, and I rented a room from this house, and they had Bible study hosted at this house once a week. And they asked me if I wanted to join, and I had questions about it. They welcomed those questions, and they taught me. And it wasn't as big and scary as it was when it was in my head. And once I asked the question, it was simple to receive the answer. I was learning a lot. My questions got deeper and wider, and I needed to ask more people than just my Bible study groups. I was reaching out to friends and family. At one point though, my aunt, I asked her, I was asking her a bunch of questions, and she stopped me and she said, but at some point you just have to choose to believe. And it was what I really needed to hear to get me over the threshold. I was able to put my pride aside, my past, and just say, that's it. I can believe. And it was such a freeing experience. It wasn't too long after that, I became baptized. I stood with tears. I mean, it was awesome. I was excited and just ready. It was also a commitment to those that I loved, that I'm gonna love something greater than myself. I can't imagine our God not wanting us to think and to expand, to push ourselves, to put pride on the side, to put something before you. And he wants to push you and to make you grow and to put things in front of you that are going to challenge you and ask why. But it does take guts. It does. I mean, there's a lot of pride in our own experiences, and if we have our ways set and you want someone to come in and change your ways, it's very uncomfortable to go through change, especially as something as big as being baptized or believing in God. And now that I found God, I have a hope, I have a destination, and it's not just about today. It's bigger than that, and it's really something I needed. Really, really did. I'm glad I got it.
Friends, as we wrap up today, I have a question for you, and it's simple, but it's profound, and I'd love for you to answer it for yourself. I just want you to ask yourself, do I need clarity or courage? So often when we are presenting our objections to Jesus, we say, well, it's just not clear enough yet. I don't have enough evidence. I don't have enough proof. I don't have enough data. And again, if you're asking those questions, you're going on that journey, we will encourage you. We want to help you process. But what if it's actually not clarity that you need? What if it's courage? What if it is the courage to actually stand and declare once and for all, I believe? What if it's the courage that God is welling up inside of you right here and right now to stand and say, I believe, even though my friends and my family, they don't right now? And it might be the courage that God is welling up inside of you to stand and declare that I believe, even though you have disappointment in your past. It might be the courage that you need to stand and declare that I believe that for the very first time, Jesus is who he says he is and will do what he says he will do. Jesus kept the wound so that Thomas would have what he needed to believe. And Jesus will give you right here and right now what you need so that you can stand and say, I believe. In the Bible, the very first response that people had when they put their belief in Jesus was baptism. And you're gonna have the opportunity to do that today. Baptism is a symbol. We are lowered into the water, representing a death with Christ to an old way of life. And then we're risen out of the water as a new creation. Now, when people are baptized, they're not saying that they have all the answers. And when people are baptized, they're not saying that they finally got their act together and so they are now presentable. This is the starting line, not the finish line. This is the beginning of a life of obedience where we can finally declare, just like Thomas did, my Lord and my God, I believe. And I'm confident that right now there are some of you that are ready to respond. And because we knew that, our team has come prepared. we wanted to make sure everything was ready for you. So all the pools and the baptistries at every one of our locations, they are warm and ready. There are private changing rooms with t-shirts and towels and shorts and underwear. Our team removed every barrier that would prevent you from getting baptized. So today is your day. This call is for everyone from 6th grade all the way through all the adults. This call is for everyone at every single one of our Eastside locations. This call is for those of you that are watching online. It is time to get in the car and drive to a campus. This is your moment. And if that's not possible, at the end of the service, our online campus pastor will tell you how. Now, the courage that God is welling up inside of you, that you're gonna need that courage to overcome the voice in your head right now that's trying to talk you out of it. You're gonna need the courage to overcome the voice in your head that's saying, well, my people aren't here, my friends and my family. Well, guys, we have photographers at every one of our locations ready to take a picture so that you can share it with the world. And you're gonna need the courage to overcome the voice in your head that's trying to talk you out of it by saying, man, I just don't know that I look all that good when I'm soaking wet. Well, I'm here to tell you, you will never look better than the moment that you come out of that water. And you're gonna need the courage. You're gonna need the courage to overcome the voice in your head that's trying to talk you out of it by saying, I didn't even shave my legs today. Well, guess what? I didn't either, all right? So we can do this together. Let's make this happen. Friends, I'm convinced that some of you are here at Easter and something talked you out of it, and today is your day. I'm convinced that Jesus has been pursuing you your entire life, and today is the day. And here in a moment, I'm gonna count to 3. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to stand to your feet, and you are audibly going to declare, I believe. I believe because God created me. And I believe because God has loved me. I believe because Jesus did it all for me. I believe. If you are ready to be baptized today, then when I count to 3, you are gonna stand and say, I believe. And I can make 2 promises to you right now. The very second that you stand up, this entire place is going to erupt. Because the word encourage means to lend our courage to those that don't have it for themselves. So church, are we going to encourage those that are ready to believe today? And here's my second promise, and it's even better than the first, is that we are promised that the very minute, the very second that anyone puts their belief in Jesus, that all of heaven celebrates and throws a party. So when you stand and when you say that you believe, all of heaven will be celebrating with us. Now is your time. Today is your day. And so if you are ready to stand up and say, I believe. If you are ready to be baptized, this is your moment. This church is gonna go wild. I want you to stand and say it for all to hear. I believe. This is your moment. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Stand up and say, I believe right here and right now. Let's go. Let's go. Come on, church. Keep it coming, church. Keep it coming, church. Right here, right now. There is still time. You can stand. Stay standing if you just made that decision. Not only is this church celebrating with you right now, but all of heaven is celebrating with you here in this moment. Stay standing. Man, we love the courage that God welled up inside of you. We love the courage that it took to stand. And right now, I want to pray for you right here in the most important moment of your entire life. Church, let's pray. Father, we are grateful. Grateful that you didn't make us come find you, you came to us. And we're grateful that you didn't make us figure it all out or get our act together. You loved us in our mess. God, thank you for giving us what we need so that we could have belief, so that we could be changed from the inside out. And we celebrate with our friends right here that just made the courageous decision to stand. We pray all these things in your son's perfect name. Amen. Hey friends, if you're standing right now, this is your moment. Grab what you need to grab, and there are people in the back that will walk you every step of the way. You can head out this room, and we will celebrate with you here in a minute when you are baptized. Grab it. In church, give them a round of applause. That is a courageous move that they just made. Today is their day. Now for the rest of us. The rest of us can stand to our feet, and we are going to reaffirm our belief in Jesus through one final song.
Well, let's sing Eastside.
I believe in God our Father. I believe in Christ the Son. I believe in the Holy Come on, declare. Our God is 3 in 1. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again. For I believe in the name of Jesus. Come on, do you believe me, son? I believe in God our Father. I believe in Christ the Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit. Our God is 3 in 1. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again. For I believe in the name of Jesus. I believe in God our Father. I believe in Christ the Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit. Our God is 3 in 1. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again. For I believe in the name of
Lift his name up in this place. Man, Eastside, it's so good to be with you. Don't forget, next week, bring the mom in your life. It's Mother's Day at Eastside. If you're a guest, stop by Guest Center. And for the rest of us, we're going to be celebrating baptisms in the plaza. I'll see you there. Have a great weekend.
Well done, and congratulations to those who plunged their past today in baptism. I love how God continues to move hearts and heal lives in Jesus' name.
It's one of my favorite things to watch. Congrats to all of you who choose to cross the line of faith today. We're praying for you and celebrating you.
Now, if God is pulling at your heart to take this step, you still can. Just drive to an Eastside campus near you before the last service.
And if you can't do that, just go to eastside.com/baptism and register for an online baptism to get information about doing this anywhere. Once you do get baptized, share that moment with us. We can celebrate with you.
Afterwards, we highly encourage you to jump into next steps. This week, we start a whole new round with step 1, and it's a perfect time to begin, so consider yourself invited.
Have a great day, everybody. We hope to see you next week for Mother's Day at Eastside. Take care.